This is a short yoga practice specifically for your back. We're going to both strengthen and stretch the back. I'm Cindy, a yoga teacher and wellness coach, and we're going to start in cross leg, but you could also start with your knees bent and your feet wide. The action that we're going to take is to stretch the spine forward and back. So we'll inhale to reach the chest forward and exhale to stretch the spine back. And you're just going to rock back and forth with your breath. It's important to warm up the back in all 6 directions, and all the movements that you make come from these primary 6 directions. So the first is this forward bend, back bend, or flexion and extension position. So that's where we begin, just moving with the breath. And then on the next inhalation, let's come into center, and we'll go into the next 2 directions, which are side bend, side to side. One hand down, the other arm can reach up and over, and switch to the other side. Inhale to one side, exhale to the other. If it's difficult to reach overhead, you can always tap your shoulder instead. Again, the primary motion we're trying to get is side bend. So just letting the spine bend side to side. On the next inhalation, let's come into center again. Exhale, relax. Our last 2 directions are twisting left and right. We'll do that by placing hands on shoulders, elbows are to the side. Inhale as you twist one way, exhale to twist the other. And then let's inhale, come into center, and exhale, relax. Good. Next, we're going to come around into child's pose or balasana. Knees are going to be together, feet together, and then start to sink your hips back towards your heels as you fold over your thighs. Now support your head with something, maybe your stacked fists or hands. You might be able to reach all the way down to the floor. And it is okay if your hips don't move back to your heels, just move as far forward as you can. The idea is that we're allowing the back to lengthen here. You're going to stay for just a few more breaths. On your next inhalation, start to make your way up to kneeling. Now you might need a blanket under your knees. If that's true for you, go ahead and grab it. You can pause the video. We're going to step forward with one foot from kneeling and then rock the hips forward as you bend the front knee. You can use some yoga blocks under your hands just to give you some extra support if you like, but you don't have to have them. You could just have your hands on the floor. I like the yoga blocks because I like to be able to be more upright with my spine. The more upright you can come with your spine, the more you can work your hip forward, and you're going to feel some stretch on the front of the hip and the front of the thigh of your back leg. Now, why this is important is because a lot of times when we sit all day, we start to have lower back trouble. And that's because the psoas muscle is always in a contracted position. So this is going to actually stretch out your psoas muscle. Psoas muscle is a primary hip flexor, but it's also a major core stabilizer. And by doing this move, you're allowing length to happen, especially if you're more upright, again, with the torso. If you're forward, it still happens, just it's better, even better, if you sit more upright. And you're going to want to do this every single day, especially if you have low back problems related to sitting a lot. Good, and then let's bring the hips back now and start to sink the hips back towards the heel. And as the front leg straightens, you can keep the toes forward or you could flex the foot, whatever feels better. Now we're just stretching open the back of the leg. Again, you can use blocks, but you don't have to. Make sure your hips aren't going all the way back to your heel. Really, you're trying to stretch the chest towards your big toe. And that's just going to open up the whole back line of the leg and get also into your back. And you can bow forward as much as you like. Good, and then let's come back forward, go back up to kneeling so we can switch to the other leg. Stepping forward and then starting to sink the hips forward. Sometimes people say to keep this front knee over top of your ankle, and that's a fine thing to do, but I actually feel like I get my psoas stretched a little better if I let the knee go out past the toes. We used to say in yoga that our knee needed to stay behind our toes, but that's not natural. When you walk up and down stairs, your knee goes past your toes. So it's a movement you do very naturally all the time anyway. I don't know why we demonized it for so long. And just let the chest lift. Feel that stretch on the front of the hip and thigh of your back leg. Take a couple more breaths here. And then let's start to back up our hips and stretch the back of the front leg, walking the hands back. Toes can stay pointed, or if you want to flex them, you can also wiggle the foot forward or back some. Just want it to feel good. You want to feel the stretch all along the back of the leg and into your glutes and into your low back. You're going to stretch your chest towards your big toe. And then you could always bow more forward. Good, and then let's crawl forward again. Come back upright. Return to kneeling, and then we're going to help ourselves down onto our abdomen. So coming down onto your abdomen, this is where we're going to do some strengthening for the back. So we're going to do locust pose, and we're going to let it be a moving locust pose. So with the breath, hands are back by your sides. And as you lift up, you're going to inhale deeply. And as you exhale, you're going to lower yourself down. So inhale to lift, exhale to lower. And you're just going to do this for several lifts and lowers, and you're going to let the movement be very, very controlled. So if you feel like you're just popping up and falling down, then that's too fast. Really control the lift and the lower as if you're moving through mud. And then let's let this be our last one. And then let's bring the elbows underneath of the shoulders to come into Sphinx pose. And in Sphinx pose, you can just let your chest reach forward. Your legs are relatively relaxed. If it feels like too much of a bend in your low spine, you can walk your elbows more forward. That'll put more of your abdomen on the floor. More of your spine will feel lengthened. You're just going to hold your Sphinx pose. You're going to press down into the elbows so the upper back is working. If you want a little bit more, you can swivel from your elbows, placing the hands towards the outer edges of your mat. Now activate your legs. Press the tops of the feet onto the floor, press the pelvis down, and then gradually lift the elbows from the floor. Now, if that causes you any discomfort, then you can always come down and out of it. Sometimes the discomfort is really just a stretch or a sensation you haven't felt before. So maybe it's a welcome feeling as you go into that nice back bending arch. Take one more breath here, and then gradually help yourself down, and then press up into table pose. Once in table, we're going to take just a few little baby cat-cows, arching the spine up and then lowering it towards the floor. And that's just going to work your back and get it ready to go into child's pose again. And then when you're ready, hips move back to heels and come into your child's pose. And then from here, because we're keeping this nice and short, we're going to just roll over onto the back and rest. So when you come into this pose, our final relaxation, Shavasana, 3 minutes. Set a timer, stay about 3 minutes. You could stay longer if you like. I do recommend setting a timer, especially if you fall asleep easily. But you always want to rest after any practice. You like and follow for more, and you can always take a full class with me, sign up on my website, link in the bio.